When I'm at home, I turn on the TV. Sometimes I watch it, but most of the time it's just for background noise, so I feel less lonely.
Half of Americans view themselves as lonely. I can't help but be surprised by that.
Yes?
Can you cure loneliness?
For a nickel, I can cure anything.
Can you cure deep down, black bottom of the well, no hope, end of the world, what's the use loneliness?
For the same nickel?
There are more people feeling alone in the crowd than ever before. According to many experts, loneliness has become the largest health concern we face in the 21st century. And it's not necessarily about being physically alone. Instead, it is the perception of being alone and isolated. Subjective loneliness is a far bigger risk factor than sheer social isolation. People are dying from loneliness, literally. Check out the links in the description below for articles about this crisis. The cost of loneliness can get quite high, monetarily and emotionally, when people look for the cure in the wrong places, such as binge-watching TV shows, sex, drugs, social media, and virtual realities. Like most things, people know the negative effects of gaming.
Homer Simpson had a great quote: "To alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems." So, when you think about these video games, it's like, yeah, they give kids fun, but at the same time, let's moderate.
And yet, video games are still glorified and addictions increase daily, with loneliness following right behind it.
I'm at this party right now, and all I'm thinking about is Fortnite.
The beauty of video games is they're moving from being solo experiences to more social experiences that invite people to come together and bond over a shared positive activity.
What's actually happening is quite the opposite. Instead of people coming together, they are becoming even more isolated. Most video games have given up their local split-screen multiplayer option, which has left players celebrating victories in an empty room. Yes, it may be easier to connect with more people, but it's all virtual. The conversation is centered around a fake world. Players don't see each other and may not even know who the other really is.
She could actually be a 300-pound dude who lives in his mama's basement in suburban Detroit. And her name is Chuck. Think about that.
And as for creating connections, yes, you're teaming up with your friends, but the object of games such as Fortnite is to be the last man standing. What does this teach young minds about selflessness and putting others first? Movies such as Ready Player One use comedy to comment on the negative effects of gaming and what it does to our world. Yet, many watching these films choose to continue gaming anyway. But it's justified, right? Everything in moderation? Because, as in most movies, Ready Player One ends on a high note with a narrative concluding,
people need to spend more time in the real world. Because, like Halliday said, reality is the only thing that's real.
But the creators don't hand us that message without some serious spiritualism and twisted ideas. From the 3 keys that unlock magic gates, to occult rituals and demonic symbols and imagery such as the Starman from the Rush rock band. Aside from imagery, the dialogue in this film suggests the concept of the world being a prison in which one can escape by playing in the oasis and ultimately, rebellion.
Sitting here in my tiny corner of nowhere, there's nowhere left to go. Nowhere. Except the oasis.
Welcome to the rebellion. Wade.
It's interesting that the Bible sees rebellion and witchcraft as one and the same. James Halliday is the creator, or god, of the oasis. He himself is not present, but appears in the game as Anorak, the all-knowing, a hooded avatar full of riddles and seemingly cold, distant, and mysterious.
A creator who hates his own creation. So Halliday's the creator.
Who hates his own creation?
What does the idea of the creator hating his creation do to the creation's view of its existence? It is Satan's objective to make humanity believe that God is evil and doesn't care about us, his creations. Therefore, it's okay to do whatever you want, to whomever you want. Ernest Cline, author and screenwriter of Ready Player One, gives us insight into his personal philosophy and belief through the main character, Wade Watts.
Here's the deal. You're something called a human being. That's a really smart kind of animal. Like every other animal on this planet, we're descended from a single-celled organism that lived millions of years ago. This happened by a process called evolution, and you'll learn more about that later. But trust me, that's really how we all got here. There's proof of it everywhere, buried in the rocks. That story you heard? About how we were all created by a super powerful dude named God who lives up in the sky? That whole thing is actually an ancient fairy tale that people have been telling one another for thousands of years. We made it all up, like Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Oh, and by the way, there's no Santa Claus or Easter Bunny. Sorry, kid, deal with it.
A few pages later, Wade mentions his religious neighbor and reveals the true nature of the book.
She was always praying for me too, trying her hardest to save my soul. I never had the heart to tell her that I thought organized religion was a total crock. It was a pleasant fantasy that gave her hope and kept her going, which was exactly what the hunt was for me.
Although the movie doesn't make it as explicit as the book, the message of both is the same. If there is no God, and life has no meaning, then it doesn't matter if you spend every waking moment playing Fortnite, reading ancient Dungeons and Dragons manuals, and watching reruns of Family Guy and Breaking Bad. As long as you don't harm other people, it doesn't really matter what you do with your life. But that's exactly where the lie is. Proverbs 28 verse 13 says, "He that covers his sins shall not prosper, but whosoever confesses and forsakes them shall have mercy." The book of Numbers says, "Be sure your sins will find you out." In looking to live godly lives, we should not look just to our own things, but every man also to the things of others. Philippians 2:4. All of this is not to say that escapist worlds are evil. In some cases, they can foster creativity and amazement. Play is good, but like anything else good, play can become idolatrous when it is all-consuming and an object of worship that replaces or distracts us from who we should truly worship, God. From movies to video games to anything really, we have a choice to make. What we consume gives entrance to whatever the creator of the content wants to instill. When making these decisions, we should see to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human traditions, according to elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ. Colossians 2 verse 8. The basis of Ready Player One and video games such as Fortnite is linked with the evolutionary concept of survival of the fittest, and only developing relationships for the sake of how they can improve self. It leads to broken relationships, unhappiness, depression, and loneliness. Similar to medication, binge-watching entertainment and playing video games only masks the symptoms but doesn't actually fix the problem. Think of it as morphine for the mind. So what's the real cure for loneliness? No, it's not throwing away all your video games or just believing in God. The real cure begins with honesty with yourself and open communication with Jesus. David in Psalm chapter 25, verse 16 through 17 said, "O God, turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. Relieve the troubles of my heart and free me from my anguish." Change your thoughts of helplessness and be proactive in forming new connections with real people. Isaiah chapter 58 verse 10 says, "If you draw out your soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then will your light rise in obscurity and your darkness be as the noonday." And Proverbs 18 verse 24 says, "A man that has friends must show himself friendly." For more tips on the cure for loneliness, check out our blog. The links are in the description below. Please like and share this video to spread this information, and check out our Patreon page to help out Little Light Studios. If you're new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when we release new content. Our previous videos are right over here for you to enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.